So they put her up there, and my mother just tore down the house. They said, Miss Cummings, that little one of yours, she's going to make it because she's got talent. My grandfather, he wanted all of them to be in show business. But my mother's the only one that went. She's the only one that filled his dream. I mean, she met my dad. Okay, that's a funny story. She was a kid, but she still was singing and everything. They fell in love, and they hadn't even, they was about 15 or 14. And they called me a bush baby because they got me in the bushes. What? And my, oh, they got when Bobby sings her lullaby.
Little Miss Cornshucks turned up in Chicago as a fully formed act, apparently out of nowhere, and she was not much more than 20 years old. I'm fascinated by this world Cornshucks entered and performed in. I mean, what was a speakeasy really like?
I'm Lester Goodman. I danced at the Delisa here in Chicago. I'm 98 years old. So you see, I go back.
My name is Floyd Webb. I'm an independent filmmaker in Chicago, and I'm doing a documentary about Club Delisa.
The Delisa, it first was on the west side of the street, in the 55th block. And it was small, but it caught a fire and burned to the ground. Across the street was a garage. The very next night, it opened. And there, in the middle of the floor, being a garage, there was this hydraulic press that used to raise the cars up, and at showtime, they would lift the hydraulic press, and it would raise the stage. So
amazing.
The Chicago clubs were black and tan, meaning integrated. You couldn't say integrated, but you could say. But the stories of the people who were at the Club Delisa, Frank Sinatra used to hang out there as a kid, right? That's where he met Sammy Davis Jr. That's
time of the fire, opening up the very next night, they would close for 1 hour to clean up. It never closed.
That is my kind of club.
Never. I mean,
they never had a lock on the door because they were open 24 hours. And people would come from work, they would come from the factories, and they would have breakfast. You could have a breakfast concert. A lot of musicians would be up all night, and they'd come and have a morning jam session.
Here's Barry.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie Paris Blues? Paris Blues. So were the clubs a bit like that?
Well, that was more sophisticated than some of these places. Some of these places were really dangerous, dives, drugs. I mean, there was prostitutes, there was drugs, there was booze. All of this was the kind of club. Gambling. Time and time again, the people I talked to were there. They said, well, it was the kind of place where you could buy anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They say they mean anything. This was not like, the underworld, but it was, a lot of these were gangster involved. Louis Armstrong had played in clubs where everybody knew. Chicago has its history.
You reminded me of Mae West again, because she used to love to go to those sort of bars. That's where she learned the shimmy.
This is where raucous American music came out of. The shimmy did. I mean, it doesn't come out of elegant, quiet places.
I'd like a rum and coke, please. Thank you. Picture Al Capone and Dillinger and a smoking gun. Richard Wright, the outsider, and native son. The black and white, the black and tan and blue. The Delisa Club and the rum boogie too. I'm dreaming of Chicago, old time blues. Southside, downtown, walking in their shoes. The colors, the whispers, the smokes, the lights. I'm a jazz ghost hunter in the Chicago night. I'm at the Kingston Mines, a notorious Chicago joint up on the north side, to check out some of the finest electric blues. But Cornshucks at the Club Delisa, now that's my idea of booze and blues heaven. You've got incredible cocktails, heart-stopping live music, a 24-hour party populated by all kinds of glamorous people, from boxer Joe Louis and Mickey Rooney to jazz greats, music lovers and factory girls. So, in amongst all of that is this singer called Little Miss Cornshucks. What can you tell me about Mildred Cummings?
Oh, I remember she came on and she looked like a little country girl. Back there they wore these dresses with the little puff on the sleeve here, and then she'd have a white thing tied around it, bare leg and bare foot, and pretty legs and feet.
Everyone says she has pretty legs and feet.
Yes. Yeah, oh yes.
lifts her skirt up and let people peek, right? It was a really commented about it.
One thing I've been told, or I've pictured as well, is this kind of the ability to sort of walk on stage and sort of almost act like she doesn't know she's on stage, just picking her nose and like as if she's been pushed on stage.
Which
And then,
is absolutely powerful. People didn't want to be associated with being a hip. She cracked
Frances, as a little girl, would go to Chicago with her grandmother to see her mother perform, peeking around the backstage curtain, watching Mildred transform into Little Miss Cornshucks.
Yeah, they would throw money. She'd pick up money with her toes. She had a basket. The basket was full of tips.
Oh,
And she would pick the money up. She should pick them up, put in the basket. She could cry at the drop of a hat. She could make herself cry. But you know what? But some of it was sad. She would cry because of things that happened in her life. You know, like this one song about my dad. One is so long. You know, a lot of these were talking to my dad. All that I breathe, you count your So anyway, when she'd come on stage, she would be sitting down with her legs crossed like this, and Mom would sit there. One time when I was over there with her, they had me to come out and sit down like this. She sang to me. And my mother had the beautiful dimples, and she was just smiling at me and singing. Then I backed off of the stage, and she went on to her act. She got her up off the floor, got her basket, music started. She said, okay, let's go. That's what she would do, and then she'd be singing, and she'd stop in the middle of everything, and then she would start crying about certain songs. She used to save all her tips. And she would give me she would come to visit me.
As Francie describes her mother, I'm starting to think that this act was not just a gimmick, it was a provocative statement. In the shadow of segregation and the shame of slavery, this might have subconsciously reminded some of the white members of the audiences to think about their own prejudices. I can see her there playing out the stereotype of uneducated, poor coloured girl, and imagine her having the audience in peals of laughter. It's a great vehicle, because once you make a crowd laugh, you can make them care. And once they care, you can make them cry. Just as she had the audience in the palm of her hand, she'd sing her heart out, showing just how vulnerable and how hurt she really was, and melting every single person in the room. Cornshucks was in demand. She was touring. Step up, Ruth Brown, Queen.
Ruth Brown was playing in clubs around that same Washington, D.C., Norfolk, Virginia area where Ahmed Ertegun first saw his Cornshucks. He's not good at anybody. He was the Turkish ambassador. Now, guess what, Dad? Instead of college, I'm going to be making blues rap. And they formed Atlantic Records on $500 that he borrowed from their dentist or something. So, at that time, you want to be... But they knew the singer that was working for the work. They called it not for nothing, for the sheer smash success. You ever heard her first record? first record is So Long, which is Miss Cornshuck's theme song. And he said, it doesn't even sound like her. We were just doing an imitation of Miss Cornshuck's record. And the first, Ruth Brown hit, was So Long, singing like Miss Cornshuck's. And Ruth said to me, she was much more plump about it than Ahmed. She said, I stole that from her and it should have been her.
You could only be goodbye.
Life. I just didn't like how they treated my mother. You know, they mistreated my mother pretty bad. And Mama, she dropped out of show business because I think she started drinking. You know, and her and Daddy done broke up, and you know, it just wasn't nice. But she still worked every now and then. You know.
Do you think she really aspired to be like a really big star? Is that what she really wanted? Yeah, just like anyone with such talent. There were a lot of copycats, because there was the Ruth Brown.
She couldn't get it.
Yeah.
You see, because the reason why they can't get my mother's sound, because she had asthma. She took breaths, so nobody can get it. She had a nasal problem. She told me, that they can copy me. And she said, I'm not a singer, I'm an artist.
Quite a few other people that she influenced along the way up to this day. And I listened to Amy Winehouse, and she kind of had that sound, and I'm like, I wonder did she ever get to hear her music? It's just amazing that she really did have a lot of influence, and didn't really get her just due.
Why may be weary, women do get weary, wearing the same shabby dress.
Not only did Little Miss Cornshucks captivate Ahmed Ertegun, but Barry can link her act to Judy Garland and the jump blues artist Johnny Ray. And her version of the song Try a Little Tenderness preceded famous versions by two soul heroes. Russell Davis, a broadcaster, writer and expert in the American and British songbook, told me more over a cup of tea in his North London kitchen. So, Little Miss Cornshucks, how did she change the song? Is there any particular part of that song that you feel that she made hers?
Well, her first version from, 1951, is really a sort of cry from the heart. It's very bluesy and very gospel-y, and those pauses are dramatic in a sort of preachy way that gospel does use. Aretha Franklin had her own hit with it, as you'd expect from Aretha Franklin. It had that gospel content.
Her enough to do it. All kinds of singers had used what she did and got rich. She didn't. And there was no management at all. And the records, you could see, you can go back and Billboard and look, and they would get good reviews. They would say, this is a good one, but nobody was pushing them. Nobody was following up. There was, Lord knows, no payola to get Miss Cornshucks on the record. And she was the kind of person who needed management and support. If there'd ever been a really strong manager, we might be talking a different story today, but she never got one. And everybody agrees that she came to drink too much. There are stories, Ruth Brown tells us, but they're repeatedly told.
I think a lot of artists self-sabotage when they're getting really close to their dream. Do you think she...
I have no doubt there was some of that.
Yeah.
But some of it was unlucky. The personal life things were hitting at the very time that she had her opportunity. And she didn't get many second chances.
No backup, either from a label or in her personal life.
The father of her children, Cornelius Jordan, you know, like a lot of these guys, I mean, he was living. That's the way people describe him, and it's unsavory. I mean, that was Ahmed Ertegun.
That's her life. That's the way she really thought, teasing around with her feelings and just taking her for granted. That's what made her sad. But the world, they got to see the best part of her, when she sang.
I know nobody's teasing around me. I don't know nobody teasing around me.
Tell you what, this is a shit town.
Outside my hotel room in downtown Chicago, the weather has suddenly turned cold. Snow is falling thick and fast. Richard Wright, author of one of my all-time favourite American novels, The Outsider, he lived here in Chicago too. And as I sit at this desk, it feels that his novel and the life of Little Miss Cornshucks are somehow connected. Outsiders are, by definition, outside of the box. They are most often undiscovered or misunderstood.